Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us for the PHNX Suns pregame show brought to you by our friends over at the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's #1 sportsbook app. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you know whenever we are live. I'm Lindsay Smith here with Saul Bookman and Espo. Guys, do you like 1:30 p.m. like afternoon games, or do you hate them?
I like them, except on a Sunday. Like, I think this is stupid. Like, why the NBA thought, oh yeah, let's schedule a 1 o'clock afternoon game on a Sunday when all the football games are on. You're never going to beat football. Why even try?
This is all about the league taking care of a New York franchise. I'm pretty sure it's a getaway day to get home for them, so they get to get back to New York a little earlier than they would have if it was a night game.
You think?
I think.
I hate them.
That would require me doing research. I'm pretty sure this is their final game of their road trip.
Do you want me to look real quick?
I can look it up while you continue.
Yeah, I just this makes no freaking sense. Like, I know the Cardinals play tomorrow, so you're not really interrupting with them. But it wouldn't shock me if one of these days they did play at the same time the Cardinals did, which is just also stupid.
Oh, I remember them playing a day game during NFL playoffs.
What?
Going up against
That's just a waste.
They were going up against the Broncos Tebow game. I remember watching that while the Suns game was going on.
Yeah. I do like it. We have friends in the chat who are like UK friendly tip off. So I like it for you guys,
Yeah.
but I don't like it for us. I would rather, honestly, as much as this is crazy to say, I would rather have an 8:30 p.m. game than a 1:30
Oh, I
p.m.
thought you were going to say 8:30 a.m.
Oh,
game. I
hell
was
no,
like,
I wouldn't
oh,
be here.
shit. What?
So I would not be here. I'm like, you guys are on your own today.
I was wrong. It's not a get home game. They play in OKC tomorrow. So it was a back to back. So they wanted to get them there.
Close
at
enough.
A decent time.
Close enough. Yeah, I'm not here for them. But it is what it is. We've got a game here in just a few minutes. Let's start off by diving into updates that we received yesterday at practice. Well, I don't know if you can call them updates, but maybe some insight. So we are without Chris Paul again for tonight's game. It's now been roughly 13 days without CP3 due to what the Suns have called right heel soreness. But the insight that we got yesterday from Monty Williams at practice, I don't know what we're calling this, but let's listen.
Yeah, I can't really speak to that. I can only speak to the ailment that he's dealing with now. It affecting something else. I don't know. All I know is that he's not at a place where he can get back on the floor just yet. We know how competitive Chris is and how much he wants to play. Once he can, we'll have him out there. But just probably taking a bit longer than people thought it would because we just haven't shared like what it is, and it's just how we operate. It's his foot, so it's like you got to be careful with that. We certainly don't want it to creep back up on us, so we want to make sure he's as close to 100% as we can.
He said the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
They don't tell you shit, and we're not telling you what's going on. But tinfoil hat, he said operate. He said that's not how we operate, but was there something on his mind?
Jesus Christ.
That's all I'm at.
To be fair, when we talked about this a couple games ago, I said, I don't believe it's right heel soreness. And you said, you'll find out what it is after the surgery.
Yeah. I mean, do I really think Chris Paul had surgery? Probably not. But this obviously is more than his foot is sore. He could have torn something minor. There's all sorts of things that can happen with the foot that is beyond soreness. So
I've always thought it was probably like we're probably going to find out it was like an Achilles strain or something like that.
It's got to be that, right?
Because when I watched his motion when he got hurt, it looked like it was probably like an Achilles. I mean, now the heel's close enough, but I can't imagine how it wouldn't be an Achilles strain, because that's a long length of time for your heel
right.
to be out. So I mean, it's all speculatory.
And I mean, you mentioned it too when we talked about it. Like, yes, a heel bruise hurts. I've seen people in the comments on Suns Twitter being like, skateboarders all know all too well how bad that type of thing hurts. I get that, but really 13 days? When you have access to the type of medical treatment and training that these guys have access to, 13 days? But even longer than 13 days, because didn't they say he'd be reevaluated next week? So now we're looking at like 17 days?
Monty let it be known that this isn't right heel soreness. That's what that clip told you. It was, that's what we've put down, but we're not sharing with you what's actually going on. Now, what I think is going to happen now is the league's going to fine them for him saying that, because with the emphasis on gambling now, you can't withhold or be deceitful with your injury information because there's money on the line, and that's the way the league operates. So.
But even without the gambling, you're supposed to report these things to the NBA. Like, other teams are supposed to know ahead of time. Like, this whole questionable out, reevaluated in a week. Now we don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if they got in a little bit of trouble for saying that.
I mean, he already got in trouble earlier in the week. Got fined $25,000.
Yeah, for the whole Landry Shamet thing. You'd think he said in a pregame presser that he was going to be extra careful about not saying anything about injuries to not get fined, and then he goes and does this, which is kind of surprising.
But can
I'm say you don't have an update?
Yeah, but I'm going to read into this a little bit, because if Monty keeps saying these things, are we sure he's all on board for all the smoke and mirrors about injuries? Because if he's all on board, he just says no update, no comment. You'll know when we know. Well, right? But now he's twice gone off book and said something about injuries.
That's true. Maybe he's feeling some type of way about the play, and so he's trying to be like, hey, man, without saying, like, what are we supposed to do? We're down a lot of players, but kind of pointing that out. But I do think it's interesting, because I was thinking about the way that he handled Cam Johnson last season when he had that quad. Wasn't that a quad bruise, basically? And when he kept getting asked about Cam, he didn't say anything like, we haven't shared what it is. He just doubled down and was like, quad bruises are really tough. Like, he went into detail about how hard it is to get that, like, dried blood out from that area and, like, all that kind of stuff with Cam's injury. So I'm surprised that he took this route. I don't know. It's interesting. That's for sure.
I just wonder if there's some frustration with it, but
maybe
we'll never know, because we're not gonna get the inside.
There's frustration on the Suns' part,
on Monty's part, I think,
about Chris Paul not being able to play,
about the injuries, about maybe the way that he has to go out there and spin it. You know, certain things like Lindsay saying, where if I keep spinning it where it's just a heel bruise, it doesn't sound like it's that big of an issue, which then gives less of an excuse as to why they're playing poorly.
I will say this, and Soccer Shoes kind of brings up a pretty good point. So CP3 was out 5 weeks before the playoffs last year, and he ran out of gas in the second round. If he couldn't make it last playoffs, being off 5 weeks before the playoffs, then he will never make it. Now, what I will say is that this theory that, well, the more rest during the season Chris Paul gets, the better he's going to be in the playoffs, doesn't hold up, to be honest with you. Like, because you don't know if he's going to get injured in the playoffs or if he's going to hit that wall in the playoffs. It has happened back-to-back years. So I've never been on board with, like, the whole load management thing, and I don't think that's what the Suns are doing. I just think that, CP's just getting older, guys. Like, we've been saying it. We've seen it. And the problem with CP is that the last 2 seasons, when it looked like he was kind of tailing off or he was diving and he was on the backside of these ups and downs, he always had another up that he showed us. He'd have a 20 and 15 game and he just would be really, really good. He hasn't really had that so much this year because he's been injured, and I don't know what Espo just did.
Can't read it either.
But it's just, he's old, buddy. He's old.
Han in the chat said, I'm pretty sure this is a recorded huddle, so I simply just wrote, hi, Han, on the back of a piece of paper and showed it the camera so he knows we're live.
You can't see it because it's so white.
Yeah, you can. It was just beautifully done.
You need a permanent marker.
Amazing penmanship.
I don't know. We'll keep you guys posted, but obviously them telling the reporters and Gerald and everyone who was out there yesterday at practice that he'll be reevaluated later on is kind of like a low-key, please don't ask me about this for at least a week.
Don't put me back in this position again, guys, please.
We're tired of it. This is what we're going to give you for now, so just deal with that and then come back in a few days and maybe we'll talk again later. But, so no Chris Paul tonight. But the Suns do face off against the New York Knicks tonight. And in addition to Chris Paul being out, they're still without Landry Shamet with those concussion protocol things. And, of course, Cam Johnson. The Knicks are going to be without Cam Reddish. And then Mitchell Robinson, who was questionable coming into tonight's game with a right knee sprain, he is available. So that's what your injury report is kind of looking like. How you guys feeling about this?
I'm starting to worry about Landry Shamet, to be honest with you. That's an extended time for something that didn't happen in the game. So he must have really gotten racked over the head.
Well, to be fair, we don't know if it happened in the game. They claim they have no clue when it happened. So he could have caught an elbow, didn't think much of it, and then wound up with the symptoms of a concussion. But yeah, that must be pretty brutal what he's going through to be out for as long as he has. But in terms of today's game, look, the Suns have lost 4 of 6. They've struggled, over the last handful of games, but they're 7-1 at home. It seems to be a magic elixir. The Knicks aren't a good 3-point shooting team. They're shooting 32% for the season, and the Suns have been struggling as of late, giving up great 3-point shooting games. Since Chris Paul's been out, they've given up 45% from beyond the arc. The Knicks don't seem like a team, knock on wood, or whatever your preference is, that should be able to do that based on what they've done this season. So hopefully, the home crowd, the fact that the Knicks aren't a good 3-point shooting team should be in the Suns' favor.
Suns got to play better defense. That's what this is all going to boil down to. The Knicks are a decent team. They're not tremendous. They're not horrible. They're just kind of a mid team. And you can't give them a lot of life like you have been doing on the road, of late. Like you've just been giving a lot of people a lot of wide open looks, a lot of easy shots, and you got to stop doing that. So the Suns, I'll look for them to clamp down on defense today.
That's the most interesting part of this whole thing. So hello in the comments said Dave King put out a tweet that since CP has been out, Suns are 29th in defense getting scored on.
Who? No,
Dave
King.
Hi, Dave. But that is the most interesting thing to me is that obviously, I mean, there was conversation when Torrey Craig is on, and Torrey Craig has been on for the most part, having had to fill in that starting unit. You could make the argument he's a better defender than Cam Johnson. Cam Payne isn't a liability most of the time. Like, he's decent enough. Where is this drop-off coming from? Is it just a lack of energy? Is it just confusion because there's so many moving parts now? Like, the defense has been the identity of the Suns for a while now. So where did this drop-off come from?
I think it's just the lack of inconsistency in terms of the lineups and your depth. Some guys playing a little bit out of position, some guys having to be just not effective communicators enough. You saw several times the other night against the Jazz when they would do some pick and rolls, just a lack of communication overall. I think DA has a lot to do with that. I think DA could help squash a lot of that. We should say, and I just thought that activity is the beginning of your defensive performance, and when you don't have strong energy and you're not, your head's not on a swivel and you're not just flying around on defense, you're gonna get toasted in this league, and that's exactly what's been happening. Yeah. And no, I do not hate David King. He's a good guy.
Look, defense is, like Saul was saying, about energy, and it's about communication. And I think that's probably tougher when you have those inconsistent lineups, when DA seems like at least the last few games, his head hasn't fully been in on the defensive end. I mean, that he was a primary communicator the last few years on that defensive end. If you're lacking in that can really screw with your rotations and an understanding of what's going on out there.
Hello also said NBA Uni put out a chart, and DA is one of the worst defensive anchors this year. That's not great.
Listen, again, we talked about the other night at length about the performance of DA, and though he had a great fourth quarter against the Utah Jazz, those first 3 quarters left a lot to be desired. And again, I've been saying it forever. The narrative was going to change on DA, especially for guys like me, once he got the contract, and then you got to see what he was really going to do and what he was really all about. And for whatever reason, he's statistically not having the best of seasons compared to what he was doing the last 4 years. And I think that, and we all know it, and he has to step up. But until he realizes he has to step up and he realizes that he has to play at a high level, it's never going to happen. And for somebody that's very inconsistent anyway, that's not a good problem to have right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think this afternoon comes down to two things for me. And it's really, this is what every game for the Suns comes down to. 3-point shooting, because this year they've shot worse than their opponents from beyond the arc, even though they've taken more attempts. And then defensive rebounding. In wins, the Suns are averaging 42 boards. In losses, 40. In losses, they're giving up 44.3 rebounds to their opponent. So they lose the battle on the defensive glass and the battle on the glass overall. They're going to lose the game. Interesting stat, though, when the Knicks lose, they give up 49 rebounds to their opponent. So tonight is all about, or this afternoon, is all about cleaning the glass, getting up there, getting offensive and defensive rebounds, and you should be able to beat this Knicks team fairly easily.
You should be.
We've said that before on this show.
Yeah. Again, I don't know. I don't have anything else to say about DA. I'm just going to stop.
That's fine. What about Jalen Brunson? That'll be interesting to see him out there tonight. Obviously, the last time we saw Jalen Brunson, it wasn't very fun for us. And he seems to be having a pretty good, like a career year with the Knicks thus far.
Yeah, I had an off game the other night, only scoring 13, I believe, on pretty bad shooting. But that was the exception, not the rule from him. It feels like he's found a home. His dad's on the coaching staff, so that can't hurt, I'm sure. I mean, as long as he likes his dad, but I assume he does because he went to New York. So, yeah, I'm happy for this guy to have found kind of his spot, but unfortunately for him, it's with the Knicks. So that probably means last year was the most playoff success he'll ever see. So.
That's fair.
Yeah, Campaign's got his hands full. That's for sure. Brunson is a very crafty, strong guard. And he's the motor that gets that team running for sure. So he used to be Julius Randle, but now it's you can tell Brunson's kind of taking over that leadership position. And again, Campaign, he's gonna have to come with it.
Yeah, Hello brings up Randle down low with Mitchell against DA. This again, free throws too is a big thing for this team. The Suns have shot 44 fewer free throws than their opponents this year. So don't be surprised if we see the Knicks get to the line, because they have some big guys that aren't afraid of contact, where that may not be the Suns' strong suit right now.
So you mean like practice breathing exercises now so that we're not upset during the game when it inevitably happens? That's what you're saying?
Just expect some shitty calls today is what I'm saying.
Okay. Well, let's get into some betting conversations. Who you guys got tonight and by how much?
I am going with the Suns by 12. I look at this Knicks team and I don't think they're very good. I don't think that's going out on a limb saying that about an 8-8 team that's been wildly inconsistent all year, and the Suns are good at home. So I think this is an easy win for the Suns today.
Mm-hmm. I don't share that same confidence. Afternoon games, as somebody pointed out, have been traditionally kind of tough for the Suns. There's just kind of wonky, and I think the Suns by 5 is probably as much as I'm willing to go. I think this is going to be a tough game. I really do. I think this is going to be a very close game, down to the wire.
I am more on your side of things, Saul, than Espo's side of things. I don't know that it'll be down to the wire because I have Suns by 7, but I don't think it'll be a blowout. I don't think this is something where we're like, pull the starters midway through the fourth quarter by any means. Gerald seems to be a little bit closer on Espo's side because he's got Suns by 9 tonight. So we shall see. Again, back to that thing we just said. The Suns should beat the Knicks pretty easily tonight. Will they? I don't know. Carlos has Suns by 3. Let's see. 7 points sounds reasonable, says David. Isaiah says Suns by 20. Isaiah has all the faith in the Suns tonight. We need to be more like Isaiah. All right, what do our friends over at the DraftKings Sportsbook app think about tonight?
They think this is a 6-point victory for the Suns. That's the line. So you're 7 right there within the window of what they're thinking tonight.
Not too bad.
Today.
Not too bad.
I keep saying tonight. We all know it's today, but
We get it. It's same thing. Same thing. What are you guys thinking about as far as maybe some gambles on the DraftKings Sportsbook app?
Well, I was going to go with the DA PRA. That's points, rebounds, and assists. But instead, I'm going to do a Jock Landale PRA over 10.5, which means a combination of points, rebounds, and assists that will eclipse 10.5. I have the over at minus 125.
I'm going with the Suns' exact first basket as a three-pointer. That's at plus 370, and I'll throw in a little something else. I would guess that it's going to be Torrey Craig in the corner. That's my feel today.
Okay. That's a good one. I like that. I've got the over for Jock Landale threes. It's at a 0.5, and it's a plus 235 tonight. I just really I saw people tweeting about it on Friday. I need Jock to hit a three. I need it. And I'm fully on his side. I know you can do it. So this is my way of manifesting it, basically.
It's weird. Everything seems short.
So here's a cool thing if you want to play this on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. There's a Rise in the East parlay. The Suns have won the last 8 versus the Knicks. In the last 5, Devin Booker has averaged 30 points per game. Ayton has averaged 8 rebounds per game. And Campaign won't tell me. Why won't it tell me? It won't extend. Anyway, so they have a parlay that you could take part of. It's called the Rise in the East parlay. Devin Booker 30 over. Campaign 18 plus over. DeAndre Ayton 8 plus. And the Suns to win against the Knicks at a plus 575. I would take that.
I don't know about DA and the boards.
I'm a little concerned. That's a great odds, though. And that's a fun parlay to make, that's for sure. It'd make the game a heck of a lot more fun. A little bit nervous for that, but I guess that's why it's also a plus 5 something, right? Because it's
plus 575.
It's not going to be an easy shoe-in.
Look, I bet below 9.5 rebounds last game on DA, and he got 10, and it screwed me. So I may stay out of the predicting DeAndre Ayton's rebounds business today.
Or maybe you should continue to take the under so that hopefully he surpasses it.
My bank account can't take that, Lindsay.
That's fair. Well, take one for the team, Espo. We're all over here trying to get DA to do more. If this is what it takes, you got to do it.
Saul, can I have a raise, please? So I can start betting DeAndre Ayton every night.
I don't want to throw your money away like that.
All right. And then finally, I want to talk about the Crunch Time Suns, because it seems as though they are no more. At least not yet this season. So 2 or 4 of their 6 losses this year have been by 1 or 2 points. Mm-hmm. I believe 2 of them with Chris Paul playing and 2 without Chris Paul playing. How are you guys feeling about Crunch Time Suns?
Well, look, I want to look at this too. Not everybody. Certain people are extremely concerned about this Suns team at 9-6, right? But when you look at this, one shot goes a different way in 4 games, and they're 13-2. Mm-hmm. And nobody's saying shit about being worried about this team. They're talking about how do we get tickets for a potential parade in Phoenix.
Who's the fourth? What's the 4th game? The first Portland game.
The first Portland game.
The second Portland.
The second Portland game, and then
the Miami, and then this last game. Okay.
So that, to me, this is minor things, right? These are small adjustments that could lead to a couple more wins. We talked about it in Friday's postgame about the Clutch Time Suns, and I think the consensus was you can't judge it until they're not injured like this, because it's not really the same group. But like I said on Friday, if Chris Paul plays like the Chris Paul we saw at the beginning of the year, they could be in trouble when it comes to the crunch time.
So Monty did kind of address these types of situations before the game today, and he was talking about them. Of course, Monty is always a positive person, so talking about them as though they're really great learning lessons for this team, especially for guys who you don't normally see in situations like that. In particular, he pointed out Campaign. And he said he sat down with Cam yesterday at practice for quite a while and talked through those type of situations, things that might help him grow in that area, but that overall, despite taking the L's in those games, it's still going to hopefully translate to being a positive later on in the season, because if Chris Paul is is inconsistent this year, if we can't rely on Chris Paul in that way, then we have to rely on somebody else. And we can't get Cam Payne to be reliable until Cam Payne has experience. So if we're trying to spin this from a positive, that's my take on it. I'm with Monty that at least then he's getting these reps, he's getting more understanding, and hopefully can get more comfortable and confident in those moments as well.
But if you have to rely on Cam Payne in the playoffs in crunch time, you're already at a major deficit. So
I don't agree with that at all. I really don't. Like, I think this is like, he's shown that he could play well in the playoffs before. Like, and last year he didn't do it, but the year before he did. Like, he was solid in the playoffs. And
that wasn't a slight on Cam. That was implying that Chris Paul is out or injured, and we know.
Yeah, but the problem is that this is assuming that Chris Paul is going to be what he was last year, and we haven't seen that at all. Like, so I think now it's a marginal difference now in terms of assists and leadership and stability. Yeah, Chris Paul is always going to be Chris Paul, obviously, but in terms of actual contributions to winning a game, like, this can only help Cam Payne as we move forward. And by the time we get to the end of the year, Cam Payne might be a completely different player in terms of like just stability and confidence. And I like what he brings to the table. I like the way he's been developing this season, and I like the aggressiveness he has. I don't care if he goes 0 for 15. If he's aggressive, I want to keep seeing that, because that's what gets him going.
It also gets his teammates going too.
Yeah.
And that's important. That's something that we've talked about a lot from Cam Payne over the last couple of years. When you get really high energy, ready to run through a wall Cam Payne, it's infectious. And that's a positive, especially because we said without Jay Crowder bringing that little energy edge type of thing, somebody has to do it. And Cam Payne is a perfect person to do that.
Yeah. Another interesting thing that Monty talked about in pregame was the minutes that Devin Booker and Mikal Bridges are playing, which he's acknowledging it needs to be far less. You got to wonder how that's going to impact, some of these games as well, because the depth isn't there right now, but you may be willing to take your chances there to save them for later. How does that impact things? And does it start today? Does he cut those minutes today for the Suns?
I mean, it's just so early in the season and I know Devin can handle that for a certain amount of time, but if you try and keep that up at all through January, you're gonna run him into the ground.
But why do you need playing him 44 minutes in November? Just seems pointless. Take the L if you have to in some of these, and play him when it is really, really going to be important.
Yeah, and I know it's a competitiveness. Devin wants to be out there regardless of how gassed he is. He wants to be out there. He wants to win these games. And so does Monty, and the entire team really. But honestly, I feel like Monty just has to put his foot down at some point in time and be like, yeah, we're not going to risk anything happening here. We're not going to risk you running out of gas throughout the rest of the season or but I'm going to sit you for a little while.
Yep.
But that's a Monty thing. Monty's got to be the one to make that call. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to the pregame show. We appreciate you. We'll see you.
Also, thanks, Eli, for the shout out. We did hit 7K subscribers. Thank you all for being a part of that.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you here after the game wraps up. Bye.
PHNX. Hey yo, my lifestyle is retro. Tell the Phoenix Metro. Megas in control and he ain't never gonna let go. PHNX though. Lindsey, Gerald, Espo. Saw past the ball, we hit a turn.